Welcome, Mike Schwartz, to the Dish with Dina podcast. I am so excited to have you on today.
Holy moly, we made it. Like this has been almost a year in going, I think, hey? Like something like
I
that.
I can't even count back that far because I just remember we crossed paths. We were trying to think of where exactly, and it was somewhere on the internet because I really do love the way that the world can be made smaller, as I tend to say a lot of times, and how complete quote unquote strangers become friends and colleagues. So I'm excited to
Exactly.
learn more about you and have you share your insights with our audience. So let's start with tell us a little bit about who you are. If you were going to give us a little bit of a, one pitch, one elevator pitch of the nugget of takeaway information, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper about the origin story.
You got it. You got it. Easiest way is the artistpreneur. So always been a creative, a musician, professional musician, always been dabbling in fitness, wellness, and then made that a profession just because I'm like, wow, I don't have a gym as an athlete right now. I got injured. I didn't have a gym. I got to get a gym. So I got into a gym membership, started selling memberships, and poof, here we are 14, 15 years later, 16. Oh my goodness. No, I'm dating myself. It's almost 20 years in the industry now. 2007 is when I first got the gig. So artistpreneur is the best way to really bundle it up in a succinct way, but there's so many hats.
There are always, this is what I love about people who are on this podcast because there are so many hats indeed. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that. The origin story, how far back you want to go, whether
Yeah.
it is the journey that brought you to music or the journey that brought you to wellness. Did those converge at a certain space? Because I just was sharing with you, my previous life was a little bit more corporate, a little bit more in the project manager and communications and a lot of those types of things. And I switched into the sciences and I had to wear a whole different hat and learn a whole new
Yeah.
language. So walk us through a little bit about how the path that you took and how that brought you to the journey where you are now.
Looking at this, there are a couple different ways that we can go. So I think it's most suited to your audience and to relevance of the topic here of how the two worlds really collided. Being the creative and being the wellness professional, I was always really both, right? And a lot of it comes back to something I'm sure we'll talk about here later, the identity of which. And for a long time, I was an athlete, and I had an opportunity to take, growing up in Canada, we all play hockey. So I took it upon myself. I was also in a band around the same time. The band was going to go out on tour. And then the day of, I'm not joking, the day of tour, two of the members go, we're not going. And I go, we've got a tour booked from, like, I'm in Calgary and we're going out to the coast to Vancouver. We got like 5 shows. What do you mean we're not going? I mean, you can quit after, but like, no, we got to go. Nope, they bail. So I have to call all the agents. I have to call all the venues and say, listen, my band blew up. We can still show up as like a duo. I don't know what that's going to be like on the stages that you want. And they're like, no. And my biggest fear was like, I'm never going to get these gigs ever again. My life in the music industry is ruined. Actually, the opposite happened. We rebooked. I actually fell out of love with music at that point because, as you can imagine, that's like a really bad relationship just blowing up in your face. I needed some time off. And I was always really fascinated. This is around the time of the Olympics, right? And I was like, oh, that looks cool. Long track speed skating. Why not? I've always skated. What could possibly be different? Well, let me tell you what. Long track speed skating is not the same as hockey. Actually, it is a disadvantage to know anything about hockey. It is such a beautiful, elegant sport. But I decided to try it anyways. And I had a couple friends that were on the national team anyway. So I was just like, okay, you're going to coach me now. So I dropped music and just went full send onto athletic ability because for the first time in my life, it was not with a team. It was me versus the clock versus the ice. And I could be an athlete and I could do anything. I didn't have to rely on anybody. Sure, the coach had influence, but no, it was me. I get good at it enough to go to Germany. And I get offered this spot on the speed skating academy of Kia. So Kia, the car company, put on this thing. They sponsored this whole place in South Germany. They don't speak a lick of English, like very German, yeah, which is good because Schwartz is also German, yeah, right. So I'm in Germany, and here's a note for anybody who decides to go to training camp. Try going to training camp first before doing a Euro trip. So I decided to do that backwards. So I flew into Scotland, met some friends in England, did the beer scene there, went to Munich, went to Berlin, went to, oh my goodness, it was bad, Amsterdam. It was, and then I showed up to speed skate. It was a rough couple of days, that's for sure. Long story short, I made it on the team and I had an opportunity to be on the development team. So I thought in my head, okay, well, cool. I don't have to stay for like the 5 extra days here. If I fly back to Canada, get my stuff packed up, I can get back here sooner. So I get on the next train from Insel, Germany, into the inner city of Munich. And Munich is a booming metropolis. Okay. So it's like massive. And I get on this train, and this is back in the days where data doesn't really work if you're not on this global plan. So I don't have my phone really working. I'm relying solely on instinct right now. I get out and I'm like, I don't remember, but there was definitely a band that I wanted to see. And they were kind of like this indie alt rock band that I really wanted to see. And oh my God, I can't, I get out at Munich and I'm like, oh shit, they are actually playing tonight. What are the odds that I get into Munich that this same band, and I have no idea where they are. So I go and I speak enough broken German to get by conversationally, and they speak enough broken English to sort of like just point me in the right direction. So let's call him Hans. Hans is sitting there. He's in a poncho on the street corner, and I'm going, Hans, where do I go to get to the Ampere? And he points me across it looks like in the Enchanted Forest. He's sending me to his cronies that are going to jump me, I'm sure. And I'm like, YOLO. So I go and I hear this kick drum. I'm like, oh my God. And around the corner, there's this warehouse, the Ampere, right around the corner. There's this band. They're playing. I catch the last couple of sets. I speak enough broken English on the bouncer to get in for free because I'm a broke, starving student artist. You know, the whole identity thing of scarcity, full send for me. I get in. They let me stay there. I noticed the guitarist after the set going like this, and I'm fangirling, right? Because I'm like, I'm a musician. I'm going like, yo, guys, what's up? I'm from Canada. They're like, you came all the way from Canada to see us. I'm like, yes, that's what you need to believe right now. And his shoulder is all messed up. And I put on my personal training cap because that's the other thing that I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I've got my stuff. Let me fix that. And I grab a lacrosse ball and I put him up on the wall. And I put it into there and I get him to do some rotation. I get him to do some pinning techniques. And guess what? That move right there was the start of what is known as the 5-minute fix as part of the MusicFit Method, which I created based around musician wellness. They asked me to go on tour. I'm like, ha, 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 I got to go back to Canada. I'm a speed skater, blah, blah, blah. I get onto the train, fly somewhere over the Atlantic that night. I wake up like, holy shit, that's what I got. That's what it is. Musician wellness. And Forever Born, that's 2015. I went home. Needless to say, I didn't go back to Germany. I didn't go back to Insel. Instead, I wrote the book, The Musician's Guide to Surviving the Rockstar Lifestyle. And that put me on the ticket to get me into different, it was like my business card. Hey, let me talk about movement, nutrition, mindset. Which one do you want to talk about? And I've been on world stages with Canadian Music Week, Australian Music Week, Breakout West, Abbey Road Institute, all these places where musicians need to understand the fundamentals of health and wellness. And that is the story of how I got here.
That was fascinating. It was a roller coaster ride. I cried, I laughed, did a whole bunch of emotions in that. I think this speaks so much to a lot of other discussions we've had because as you're talking, I'm listening and I'm thinking of some keywords that pop up quite often. Taking chances on things, right? So there's fearlessness that comes up a lot. The not yet being prepared, but allowing to see how things play out without fully knowing what might come next. So also maybe that's a confidence thing, or perhaps, throwing caution to the wind and seeing where things will lead you. So that could also be related somewhat to fearlessness too. You mentioned the things around identity. Not everybody has to be just one thing. And this is what I love. It's not just like I'm a nutritionist and maybe also a real estate agent. It's more about I have an outlet that I pursue that might be completely in a different vein or a channel. So there's a creative thing that I do and maybe a more analytical thing that I do. And I love the last thing, I love that the niche or the target population. So there's an opportunity also to work within industries that kind of you might not have thought go together, but yet here you are being an insider now for that and being
Yeah.
able to marry those two things. And I absolutely love what sounds like to me a success story, Mike. I love it. Even if you hadn't set out to have that as your end result, I love that's how it got you
Yeah.
there. What is it that you are currently doing right now? Like as far as the a typical week in the life of you. And then we'll definitely talk a little bit too about some of your
Mhm.
approaches, because I want to see how the certifications are involved, also the
Yeah.
mindset we talked about too, how the music plays a role. So give us a little bit of a broader view of maybe a typical week, maybe even a typical client, if that's somebody
Yeah,
that you
for
can
sure.
give us. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. For the largest part, it's like it's ironic because right now, a lot of the people that I'm typically working with, yeah, sure, there's lots of music industry, but oftentimes the people that are they sit back and they go, wait, I could be a rock star? And rock star, like that's a everybody's got a rock star in them, okay? And that's a big philosophy I had because for a long time when I was mentoring other personal trainers, when I was mentoring other strength coaches, I would turn these desk jockeys around and be able to see the value in their own wellness so much that they dropped, like you, they dropped the corporate and went full send on health and wellness to help inspire other people. So a day in the life, a week in the life, a lot of it is actually working with musicians and working with artists that have this confidence issue. I say it's either burnout, they're broke, or they've got the overstrain injuries. They've beaten themselves up because they're so high focus on everything they need to do. And that's what led me into having a language to explain, like in our world, in the health and wellness world, we know a lot about the masculine energy and a lot about the feminine energy. And when you've got an abundance of masculine, go, 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 do, there's 6 styles of burnout and stress, right? When we're talking chronic stress, you've got your physical stress, you've got your emotional stress, you've got your nutritional, you've got your chemical, you've got your thermogenic, and then you've got, of course, your electromagnetic. A lot of people aren't talking about the sonic, and we can get to that if we want. However, when we overload ourselves on those stress and expect to be able to perform, and whether or not that's on stage literally or perform for like showing up for your kids, showing up for work, showing up for that presentation without yawning 100 times, or loading up on caffeine to get us through the day. All of these addictions that we have, these are band-aids, right? When we look at the root of it though, and we go, okay, here's our masculine, we're really overwhelmed. We're going to start to introduce some more nurturing, some more feminine approach, some more give back. Instead of working out, we're working in, right? And when we start to do that, day in the life gets a lot better for these people I get to work with. So as far as the actual landscape goes, yeah, I work with bands, I work with artists, I work with people that don't yet know or identify as creatives. But if you've ever problem solved, you're a creative. News, right? And essentially, the bigger goal is to duplicate me. So I'm in the process of creating the MusicFit Method. I've already done it. It's just a matter of getting it certified by somebody who wants, or getting it recognized, accredited. The MusicFit Method is essentially just duplicating me so that more artists in the world can leverage more of their income so that they're more valuable to any band that they are. And this isn't just artists, this is managers or anybody that's on the road or in the studio. Any music professional has this certification. They can then take the approaches through movement, nutrition, and mindset that I have learned over the last 2 decades and apply so that they can now be more valuable. They got more curb appeal. Right? And then, so that's in the works. But in the meantime, it's really just helping to inspire emerging artists, especially, to be exactly who they want to be. Just really dive into it. I don't care. Like, we need you to be, everybody else is taken. Be you, and really finding out what that is, uncovering it. And a lot of it comes down to like the archetypes of rock and roll, which is like a whole card deck that I made as a language to speak to that.
This is something that really resonated with me is, again, when you focus on the identity or the labels that we might put upon ourselves or the certificates that we get or the things that we're doing in a promotion based setting, like, now I'm a manager or now I'm the director, we are still a
Mm.
human person. So we
Yeah.
still, whether or not we're currently managing a chronic disease, whether it's a physical or mental issue that we have diagnosed, or we're trying to reduce the risk of something, I work sometimes in corporate wellness health fairs, like they'll plug me in. And I think to myself, I'm so appreciative that this company is allowing me to come in for, 1 to 3 hours and talk a little bit about how to get a good lunch and how to blah, blah, blah. But if the company is also not creating the systems to support the employees, and if the employees are not empowered, I guess, in a way
Yep.
to prioritize their well-being. The fact that so many people will say, I'm stuck at my desk until this last thing. I'm like, yo, the inbox is never going to be not full, okay? Like you have to get up and go to the toilet. You have to get up and get yourself something to eat. So let's talk a little bit about, right, you mentioned music, nutrition, and mindset, and talk a
Mhm.
little bit about this mindset discussion because honestly, Mike, like it's something that I feel we have to continually address. There's From what I've seen in the last 8 years of switching careers and doing this, it's very much, immediate gratification. I tried three things, it didn't work. There's no journey. Like people don't
Yeah.
understand that it could be somewhat complex and they have to be patient and compassionate with themselves, but they also don't necessarily know the strategies. And I think that's where somebody like you does come in to teach them. So share with us a little bit about how you might address that and maybe some of the barriers or the obstacles that you might come across. If you feel like giving us, a top three,
Yeah.
whatever, that's fine too, but whatever works and what you want to
Yeah,
share.
for sure. Oh, top three. Yeah. Power of three. Power of three. Knock, knock, knock. Three strikes, you're out. First, second, third. Like it's breakfast, lunch, dinner. Everything's in threes. So you're right onto it. And the thing that and speaking to that, the thing that I come across the most is that people when they come, and it's regardless of even before I was working with exclusive like musician mindset guy, people come in because they see the tangible. They see you know what? I'm 25 pounds overweight. So if I just eat better, you know what? So I'm going to talk to Dina. She's going to prescribe me the best nutrition, all the healthiest foods for me to eat, and I will be lighter. Perfect. And it might work. It might work for a year. It might work for 6 years. It might work for, even 2 decades. And then one day it doesn't. And we feel like we're a failure and we come back. Because the thing with nutrition and movement and all the great habits is I'm sure people are familiar at least with building a house. And the way I like to explain it is like, that's like putting the walls and the roof up on the house. That's great. You go and do that out on a hill or out on a swampland or something like that. And it's only a matter of time between like a wind comes in and that house is falling over. Our identity is actually the foundation. So if you're building habits, nutrition, movement, or whatever, and you still believe you're the fat kid because your older brother kept on calling you fat when you were 8 years old, you will always believe you're the fat kid until that subconscious story that you're telling yourself is erased. And the way that I approach mindset is two parts. There's the conscious part of it and there's the subconscious part. We'll talk about the conscious part today because it's practical and it's valuable for your listeners. Anybody listening right now, Dina, if I could borrow you actually, write down, I got a real problem with, and then fill it in. Write it down. And anybody listening right now too, I love doing these kind of word games here because the way that we articulate our thoughts, just as Dina's going there, I'll explain. The way that we articulate our thoughts are through the words that we choose to use outwardly to our colleagues, our loved ones, anybody outside of us, but also, more importantly, often, the stories that we're telling ourselves. That's mindset. Now we take those words and we pile them up into a big old pile of pancakes. You got a belief system now. That stack of pancakes is known as a belief system. That belief system is actually what is carrying out your outcome, your action, or most often inaction. So if you're unhappy about your action, your outcome, you got to first examine the belief system that you're subscribed to, which is rooted in the words. Ah, how wild is that? And here's a perfect example. Dina, what did you come up with? I got a real problem with.
Yeah, I've got a real problem with keeping consistent at my daily rituals.
Read that out loud again. And then
Yeah.
after you breathe or after you read it, take a deep breath in through your nose, diaphragmatic, right down to the belly, and big, long, audible exhale. I'm all the way up in Calgary. I got to hear you. I
Okay,
got to
so
hear you.
read it
Yeah.
first,
Read it,
and then
then
take it down.
breathe.
All
Yeah.
right. I've got a real problem with keeping consistent at my daily rituals.
Deep breath in. Check in. What do you feel in your body right now? All
A
right
bit,
answers.
a bit vibration,
Okay.
a little tension, a little tightness.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where?
Chest.
Yeah. Okay. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Chest
Tension,
area.
tightness. Scale of 1 to Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber's 11 for everybody playing at home. Justin Bieber's 11.
7?
What, how intense? Okay, 7.
Yeah,
Okay,
7.
very
Yeah,
cool.
it's
Very
very
cool.
noticeable.
Awesome. Okay, cool. You want to play a game?
Yeah, I'd
So
love
you
to
got your
play a
pen?
game. This is the
Okay,
best
this is the best,
episode
right?
so far.
Okay, games are so much fun. This is what I'm all about. When you ask Artistpreneur, I just make everything fun. If we gamify things, people learn. So take that pen, scratch out one word. Do you want to guess out what that word is? Scratch one word.
Problem.
Problem. Exactly. So scratch out problem. What we're going to do is we're going to actually
Ah.
replace it
Mhm.
with opportunity. Okay. And now do the exact same thing. Read it, deep breath in, and check in with your body. All right.
This is so exciting. I'm going to do this out loud, and I hope that people who are listening or watching are engaging in
Yeah.
this exercise as well.
Yeah.
So now this has turned into I've got a real opportunity with keeping consistent at my daily rituals.
Deep breath. Deep breath. I know. I know. You're like,
It's,
what?
I mean, I just smelled in like flowers and lavender, and it's loose, and it's like I just spent a day at the spa. 100%, I'm not making this up. I
Yeah.
just felt like I'm tingly.
Yeah. What happened to that tension, that 7? What
It
happened?
went it's down to maybe a 0 or a 1 right now. Yeah, not even there. It's been replaced
By
by
good
openness.
vibes.
Yeah, the good
Yeah.
vibes,
Go.
the tingly
Yeah.
stuff.
Anybody watching this on YouTube, you saw Dina. She just immediately she sat up and she like opened herself up to opportunity. She opened right up, right? And that's the power of the body always knows. And that's what I learned very young in my career, thankfully. When people approached me and I kept on seeing 6 weeks after 6 weeks, they would do the habits and then they would just fall off the way. They never believed it because they always saw it as a problem. That's one example of how your language can actually, this is practical magic, folks. This is why the archetypes work, is because, are you familiar with the word abracadabra?
Yes, I'm
I know it sounds
familiar.
random. Yeah. Okay. What do you think of?
Magicians, right?
Yeah. Rabbit,
Revealing
rabbit.
rabbit out of the hat. Exactly.
Bingo. Most people think that. Are you familiar with where the word actually comes from?
No, I am not.
This is cool because there's so many times where I run into people that are like, no, it's just magic. I'm like, yeah, I guess it comes from with my word, I create. That's what it means in Aramaic. That's way back ancient times. That's what it meant. With my word, I create, or sometimes with my word, I influence. Now think about that. Why do you think we call it spelling? Huh. When you say, I got a real problem with Bob down the street. He never cuts his lawn. Yeah. Bob, you know, you're going to always see problems. Here's another one. Don't think about the pink elephant. What are you thinking about? In order to not think about the thing, you have to think about the thing. So I
Exactly.
can't wait for Friday. I know it sounds endearing, but because you have to wait for Friday, can you? Yes. Okay, so that's inaccurate. You can wait for Friday. And I know it sounds trivial and like we're splitting hairs. Here's the thing. I can't believe he's gone. When you're talking about your younger brother who passed away in a fiery car crash, how do you think you're moving on from that? No, I can't stop spending money. Guess what? You're going to keep on spending money. The way the reticular activating system works is the things you focus on, you will attract. That is no lie. So when we see problems, we will always see problems. Guess what? We look over here. Now we got opportunities. The same thing. What? Now it's an opportunity. So tell me, just to carry on, what are those opportunities that you have? Just think of like off the top of your head. Read that line again and then just list a couple opportunities. What do you think?
I've got a real opportunity with keeping consistent at my daily ritual. So my opportunities are I'm doing it right now. This is kind of working perfectly. Decluttering some things because in order
Perfect.
to me to have space, I need
Got to
to
feel like you have
make
space.
space.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's
One.
also on my calendar too, like making space physically in my
So
room so I have space to move and do things and space in my calendar so I can allow space for me to keep up with my daily habits. Which can I just interject for one sec just to
100%.
point out that this is why it is important that people need people, right? Healers need healers, counselors need counselors, therapists need therapists, doctors need doctors. We're not above just because we are quote unquote
Mm-mm.
experts in something or we've been credentialed in something that we still need to do the work ourselves. And you are a perfect example of why this is working right now in real time. So this is amazing. And
Well, thank you.
I thank you. Thank you.
No, game recognizes game. I will say that. So thank you. I receive. And I'm 100% with you, you know, until I got out of my own damn way. I was a kid that never practiced drums because I was too good for lessons. And then one day I got lessons. Guess what? I exponentially got better. Funny. I now also, this was a real side tangent. If anybody out there has a problem with what just happened here, this was an exchange of thank you and receiving. And I know a lot of moms out there really, really, really suffer from, I don't, no, no, no. Oh, no, no. And they'll deflect. And they'll deflect. Guess what? That's you deflecting. It was put into perfect context way back in Melbourne, Australia, 3 days before I came back, mid-pandemic. If anybody remembers what Melbourne was like in the pandemic, was happy to come back to Canada. That's for sure. There were drones in the sky. We were allowed 1 hour of walking. Doesn't matter what we did. We had 3 places we could go: the gym, or out to an outdoor park, or to a doctor's office or groceries. And my friend's going to get coffees. She's like, hey, what do you want? She knows I love flat white. Okay. She knows, like, it is a hard press. Even if it's 9 o'clock at night, I will have a flat white, especially in Australia. You guys get to Melbourne, get the flat white. She goes, what do you want? She offers it as a question that wasn't really a question. She knew I wanted a flat white. She was being polite. I go, oh, nothing, don't worry. She's like, I'm going to ask again, what do you want? And I go, no, I'm good. And I'm getting like tense. Like, you know, the Bieber scale. Yeah, I was like 7. I was like rigid, like, good. She goes, if you continue to reject the $2 coffee that's given to you, you're going to continue to reject the bigger gifts that this universe is going to have been planned for you. So stop refusing gifts. And I felt this whole like cathartic release. I'm like, oh no, you will receive more when you say thank you. Those 2 powerful, powerful words, because it gives recognition back to the person that was giving the compliment. It wasn't for you, it was for them. Just give them the thing. That's how this universe works. It's an exchange of energy. When you accept and you can receive, holy smokes, then you're going to be given even more. So for all those people that just want to give to all the people around them, start receiving, and you will be able to give more. Promise. It happens on stage. It happens off stage.
I talk about my mom a lot of times in these episodes because I see her so very often, and she's dealing with a cacophony of conditions, but she's also fiercely independent, and she also is very set in her ways because she grew up in a time where it was a lot of apologizing for the simple things or rejecting the thing. And that's actually one of the conversations we had recently. Yeah. I don't expect the kids to do anything. It's okay. I'm your mother. And I said to her, this is a gift for us to be able to spend time with you. And it's a gift for me want to treat you to lunch or something. Like, just allow me to do that because I feel like I'm closer to you in that way. And it draws, even though we're mother-daughter and we spend plenty of time with each other, it just makes me feel like I'm connected in a way that makes me want to thank you. And this is the way of showing it. And she was open to receiving that, Mike. I was very excited.
Yes.
Even in, decades later, she's still learning to be flexible. Yeah.
Mama.
I know.
I love that. Oh my goodness.
She's a cutie.
Old dogs can learn new tricks. Okay. My pops is the same way. For the longest time, me and my dad are so close that we get into it, right? Again, era Canadian, burly. We don't talk. We bear the emotions. We're men, right? Farm kid. Yeah. So my dad has a tendency to vent about stupid shit. And for the longest time, I would be the healer in his life, providing all of the answers. Like, oh, I mean, your hips are sore. Cool. Your ankles are sore. Well, why don't you try doing this? And I would just automatically give him advice. And I stopped because I was like, wait a minute, I don't do that with clients. Let me just treat him as a client for like 5 seconds here. So what I do is I typically go, cool. And that's usually a pattern disruption enough. He'll go, cool. No, I just told you my ankles are on fire. I'm like, absolutely. That sounds great. He's like, what? And it just gets him to pause. You know, another pattern disruption I do, I have all of my appointments on 07 or 11. It's not a 0. It's not a 5. It's not a 15. It's not a half. Put it on a weird number. Make people stop and think. Be weird. So my dad goes, oh, what? I go, yeah, sounds cool. Hey, Pops, would you like support, solutions, or space right now? And he goes like, what felt like a half an hour, probably only a minute, but he was just like this. He did like the pondering dad face, like, anybody watching on YouTube, this is my dad. No, just needed to vent. Thanks. Thanks, kiddo. Thanks, Mick. Like, what? He went and told all of his hunting buddies in the hunting forum, and he told my uncle. He tells my uncle every single time they talk. My uncle relays that to me. He's like, thank you so much for getting through to Dad. He goes, you really made an impact in his life. He brags about that moment every time I talk. because it allowed him to see and put like it on himself. It's called ownership. That's what that feels like. He goes, you know what? I am just being a victim and I'm going to own it. And he said, yeah, I just needed to vent. So I'm like, cool. Let me know if I can help. And he's just like, night and day. The relationship from that point on with me and my father was always like this. We were just so like, since that time I was like 14, 16 years old, just hated that we always got into conflict. And then that moment, and this is like only a year and a half ago, that moment changed the relationship. So it can be done, folks.
I want to ask you related to that in the maybe the opposite direction too. Is it sometimes hard for people who might have issues with setting boundaries to be able to verbalize or vocalize, I'm looking for support, solutions, or space? Because I have a big thing with that too. I can't take everything all the time. I definitely need to set stuff apart. So, I used to be a yes person, now I'm a no person. And I mean, within reason,
Yeah,
I'll say yes to
of
things that
course.
are opportunity based and no to
Of
things
course.
that don't give me
Yeah.
energy. But I love, again, right? Three. I love the three choices there. How would you help people be okay with saying, I need the following instead of
Oh
waiting for
yeah.
somebody to ask them?
That's where the ask. Okay, so this is a great segue into the actual archetypes. This is what I created this language for, because as you can imagine, trying to tell a bunch of rock and roll musicians about, you need your king sovereign to be in charge, your warrior is nothing, they don't get that. So what I did was I created the archetypes. We got the leader, of course he's the drummer, right? Of course. And then we've got the visionary. The visionary is like your virtuoso, typically a bassist or a keyboardist. And I did the research. I was like, is this just a coincidence? Is it only just my favorite? No, I did all the research. Every single name the band, and I will be like, yep, that's the leader, that's the charmer, that's the visionary, it works to a T. It was eerie, to say the least. Then we've got the rebel. This is the Jimi Hendrix of the band, or the Jimmy Page of the band, the rule breaker. All right. This is Led Zeppelin. Like, yeah, right. And then we've got, speaking of Led Zeppelin, one of the greatest frontmen ever, right? You got Robert Plant. That's the charmer. So the challenge we have when we have that is one of these masculine archetypes is out of balance. Do you want to take a guess at who, knowing the things that you know about bands, like the charmer's the frontman, the rock and roll rebel is the guitarist, the visionary is the creative, right? And then the drummer is the leader, the organizer, right? What one of those do you think is out of whack when we are unable to respect or verify boundary? Like, because that's a boundary thing, right? Like if they're not able to ask for help, that's a boundary. They don't feel
Right.
safe. What member of the band is responsible for rules and setting them?
The drummer?
Kind of, very
Kind
close.
of. I'm
Oftentimes
thinking
similar.
rhythm
Yeah.
setting.
No, no,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Similar. That will, and you'll see why. Because when we
Yeah.
talk about the masculine archetypes,
Yeah.
the warrior is the one on the front lines. The warrior is the one that could be like, I need help. Okay. The king sovereign, the leader, the king sovereign is actually the bigger picture of that, because he can't keep control of his warrior. He can't keep, so when you're talking about the drummer's got a guitarist that's out in the middle of the crowd soloing while the song is still going. It's not his time to solo. He's going crazy because he's just an egomaniac. And that's the challenge that we have when we look at a masculine archetype that's out of balance. So when we talk about people and how to be good at asking, try this. Set an appointment intentionally knowing you're going to cancel it. That builds your confidence. All you need is confidence to be able to fear rejection. That's all it is. The reason most people, in my experience anyways, the reason people don't ask is because they're afraid people will say no. So set yourself up in small doses to build that confidence to get ready for a no. In sales, we used to do like shoot for 100. Shoot for 100 calls, you get one, you're doing great. And then people are just like, okay, I'm only at 94. And then the 95, 96, 97, they were all yeses. You're like, good, right? So when you can set yourself up in a safe environment and start practicing on people you know, love, and trust, they will understand, even if in the moment they don't. Okay, because remember, things are happening for us, not to us. So when you ask your younger brother to say, hey, would you like to go out for a coffee on Friday? And then Friday rolls around and you're like, oh, man, I got to reschedule. Just I got to reschedule. Would it be, here's another way. Would you be willing, or shoot for a no? Would it be wild to reschedule? Because the people will go, of course it wouldn't be wild. And now they feel empowered to help you out. People want to help. Everybody in your world wants to help you. Would it be, try that. Maybe you want to go cut right to the chase. You got something that you got to ask help for. Hey, I got this thing. Would it be crazy if I asked your advice? That's it. Leave it there. Are they going to say, yes, you're crazy? Maybe, but that's a good sign to get rid of them out of your life. Because like, it's not insane to ask for help. Nobody in their right mind would ever think that's wild. And that's the intent of that kind of a question. No-oriented questions will get you way faster as a coach, as a mother, as a daughter, as a son, father, brother, doesn't matter what you're doing, shoot for no, because you're going to get there faster. And I know this from my ex down in Australia. We'd spend 25 minutes, maybe even 40 minutes debating on if we were going to go from pizza, ramen, or Thai. And it always came back to ramen, which we started at. I was like, wow, we did this run around the block for 45 minutes when all I tried one time was like, would it be crazy to go for ramen? No. Okay, ramen it is. 2 seconds, done. So go for that. So a couple different tactics there.
What I love about that is you are helping people skill build communication. And I think that's often could be fear-based too, of just like you said, maybe worst case scenario, rejection, or not being confident enough to know what to ask for. And so really it's a matter of coming in at a place that feels comfortable and safe. But even if you term it in that way, like, would it be crazy? I love that approach of it. It's okay to say no, right? You're kind of subconsciously saying that, and you're also waiting for a no to come. And I think that opens up a lot of flexibility to have an engaging conversation. So I absolutely love that exercise too. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, you
Um,
bet.
are there certain things, hot topics, things that kind of get under your collar, or anything that maybe we haven't addressed leading up to this point that you would like to address right now or share with the audience, debunking things or clarifying things, however you want to term it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that the biggest one for me in most practical sense for most people is mindset, because it's such an overused term. And I think we really debunk that. Mindset is the story that you tell yourself about yourself. The other thing, and as soon as you get that down, as soon as you understand that, you can literally level up. I've had people that think of it this way, and I'll cap it with this. Okay. Think of therapy, bless the therapists in the world, but think about talk therapy for now. How many of us have been there, and how many of us have gone there forever? How many of us are also health practitioners that know that long-term is not actually a good thing? Like if you've been to that person for 12 years, that's not necessarily a good thing. It's like, why isn't it working? Right? Because here's the thing that we know about talk therapy. It's like going to the stove. You love cooking, right? You're going to go to the stove. You got rice, maybe on the old school in the pot. Okay. We're not in rice cookers anymore. We got to go over there. It's boiling over. Oh shit. Run over, lift the lid, let it boil, let the steam off, put the lid back on, carry on with what you do. You do that for another day. And then it goes, and you go back and forth and you can do that for a decade. Okay. What I do with practical magic and mindset is we go over there, first crack, and we turn the burner off and move it off of the stove. That's called root cause. The root is the heat. So we look at that. And when we get to the subconscious, like that's just the conscious. All we talked about was the conscious. I'd love to go further and explore the actual subconscious of that and how we integrate with music and movement. And that's the other piece. That's a good little segue right there. The other piece that's so frustrating for me as a musician that practices healing music, it bothers me to no extent. Endless. Like I hear this all the time. Music heals. Well, that's a victim mentality. I know that's controversial for me to say. Ooh, because nobody likes that word. Big E word, victimhood. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's anything outside of you is victimhood. If you're good, bad, indifferent, anything that is there's a difference between being a victim and being victim of a circumstance and being in victimhood, victim mentality. And that's what I'm talking about. And when people say things like music heals, it bothers me because it takes the onus off of the person. The person is actually healing. That's an inside job. Healing is always inside. You took the onus to listen to music. And I will say this, music reveals. And especially when we start talking about the chakra system and how each frequency of the chakra, like every chakra, if for folks will give you a whirlwind on that, our body is made of energy. Okay. News. Okay, we got 7. If you go into really deep things, it's all the way up to 13, probably 47 for some people, but we're going to talk about 7. Crown, okay, third eye, throat, right? After our throat, what you were already experiencing, Dina, that heart, right? Throat, heart. This is very common for musicians, as you can imagine, okay? Because we talk about emotional things and we sing about it. Oh, funny, our throat, right? And then we get into the digestive system, our solar plexus, our gut instinct. Why do we have a gut instinct, folks? That's for round 2. Then we get into our creativity, our baby makers, right down in here. Woo, all this in here. That's our creative energy. And if you think about it, we are born to create. Procreation is creation. Nobody thinks about that until you actually say it. And then root, like a tree, you got to be grounded. So if you've got ankle injuries, you've got knee injuries, something's off on your root, maybe security, money, or something like that. If your pelvis is off, it's probably something to do with your creative. Start getting in there. And the coolest thing is when I play a certain frequency and you go, that reveals something for you to heal. Oh my goodness.
I think this would be a great opportunity for our audience to understand in the music what you just put into words. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, let's do it. Let's do it. All right. All you got to do is I'm going to play the same riff for the listeners playing at home. You're going to hear the same riff and you're just going to see which one you like better. And all right answers. Okay. Here we go. That's number 1. Cool? Now, let me do the old unplug-a-roo. Get you set up on number 2 now. Can you hear that? Quiet. Okay, so now the verdict. Which one did everybody like better? And they're all right answers. Number 1 or number 2, Dina?
I feel like each one of them made me feel a different way.
That's a great answer.
The first one felt a little, I don't know how to term this, a little maybe deeper or hollower, so it made me kind of chill. And the second one felt a little crisper and lighter, and it made me feel a little bit more energized.
Bingo.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great, there's no wrong.
There's no wrong answer, I know.
There's no wrong answer. And the reason that we're doing that is the first one is played in what most don't play. Like when you listen to most music, it is set in 440 hertz. That is a standardized thing that we'd need a whole another hour on that, where that came from, and I've got a lot of opinion on that. The first one is in 432. That is the frequency of peace. That is the frequency when you go outside. They've done numerous studies on hummingbirds, bumblebees, water, rushing water, guys, leaves, nature, the shit that we need more in our life. That's that frequency. How wild is that when we think about it? So why I'm saying that is that the second one feels crisper. It might feel more familiar to many people because, like, especially in the gym setting, they'll hear that type of frequency in the one doing. But here's the thing. We just talked about how much we are in so much stress all the time. Why the hell are we putting our body into sonic stress when we go and work out? Now, here's the thing. I've put multiple performance albums together for world-class weightlifting teams in Australia. They didn't change shit except for what they listened to before and during and after as a recovery. We had it fire and ice. It was very cool. They did a pregame. They listened to music. They did all the same training. They ate all the same things. They did all the same things. Then they did recovery and they listened to it, and it was all in secret, sacred frequencies. Guess what? They blasted the PRs, the world records. The only thing they changed on short notice was the music. Music can inspire performance, and that's not just restricted to athletic performance. That's you at work. That's you at being a mom, being a dad, being a person of society, just being a better human. You said it yourself. I felt more chill. Guess what? When you feel more chill, you walk out into the world, everybody else around you feels more chill. You've walked into the room where you've been like, there's a good vibe. Music can reveal that. So when you feel more chill, I go, ah. And there's time and a place. A 444 is actually the gut. That's the 520, also known as 528, 444, 528. That is the frequency that I put music in to motivate, but I rarely create in 440 now because it's irritating. It makes us irritable. It's not productive. It's inconducive to performance. 432 is peace. 444 is do. And then all of the chakras have a corresponding number, and I write to that. And that's how I can help people reveal the things that they need in order to get to the goods of this. And the last thing I really want to do with you, would you be okay if I just pulled a card?
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
This is perfect timing, by the way, as of course it would be.
It's perfect, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a musician. I got
that.
Okay. Okay. So we got two options. I'm going to let you choose. We can do like a one, I call it the Lone Star, which you put all of them together, both masculine and feminine. And then that one card that we pull out is the thing that you get to work on here today. And I can pull it up. I've got the booklet and we can give you a little action step. And we could also do a duality. We could pull two cards, one from the feminine, one from the masculine. Totally your call, duality or Lone Star. What do you like?
Let's do a quick short term and I'll plop them all together and pick one.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, here we go. We'll just do a quick little shuffle here. You tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Of course. Of course. The leader, the organizer, just as you were talking earlier, I need to clear space. Do you want to hear what I wrote about this, guys?
I absolutely do.
I
love this, by the way. This is so fun.
I was gonna say, there's some great storytellers in this world. You can't make that shit up, folks. Okay, everybody watching this on YouTube, this is a great way to wrap it. Okay, so the leader, okay, the archetype itself, the leader is the heartbeat of the band. Of course he is, right? Or she. Okay, they take on the reins and lead others to success. If this card chooses you, it could mean it's time to step up. Study the legends. John Bonham, Led Zeppelin, right? His powerful drumming was the cornerstone of Led Zeppelin sound. Neil Peart, Rush, good old Canadian kids, known for his technical mastery and influential rhythmic style. And Keith Moon from the Who Are You? Famous for his dynamic and unpredictable drumming. How do we put this into play? Because I'm a big guy on action from integration from the takeaway. Now you got the takeaway. Now how do we action it? Okay. The core values of the leader are discipline. This provides structure and stability to the group. Dependability, consistent and reliable, ensuring the band stays on track. Confidence, natural authority that others respect and follow. Now, how do we put it in practice, Dina? Practice tapping. Get it? Like a drummer, tapping into your speaking, educating, and leading others in your zone of genius. Try something new. Oh, you're going to like this. I made this a while ago and we didn't know we were having this conversation. Organize a get together or dinner party with some friends or lead a group in something that you love.
Okay, for people
wild is that?
For people who are not watching right now, my face is aghast. I am not kidding you when I say, first of all, again, nothing happens coincidentally, everything happens for a reason. But the way that I'm thinking of this right now, Mike, is about 10 o'clock this morning, right? So a handful of hours ago, every Friday I meet up with a friend of mine virtually. We go through a bunch of stuff, we share whatever, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, my point is that I said to her, I spoke at a conference on Wednesday and I got a lot of really good feedback, and it made me start thinking about how I miss doing things in a little bit of a larger scale. And I started thinking at some point a while back of, maybe I should integrate like business coaching or turning mentorship into something a little bit more formalized, profitable too, of course, but also something that would make me feel like there's action steps and that I am now allowing myself to kind of play a senior role where I've always seen myself as a junior because it's a new career for me. That's number one. Number two, I just got in touch with a handful of cousins of mine who are all over the country and the world. And I said, all right, that's enough. We keep texting back and forth. Let's hop on a Zoom call. I would love to see your faces and just do a quick catch up. So I'm getting chills. I'm not making this. I'm getting chills. And the last thing I'm applying this to is I also was saying to my friend earlier, how I'd like to see next year go is I do soak in a lot of information. I educate myself. I'm not sometimes great on executing a plan, but I want to be a little bit more streamlined in both personal and professional development. Like I want to learn a little bit more about global issues. I want to learn a little bit more about diabetes. Like I want to fine tune my experience and my skill set to perhaps go for a certification in that. So all of these things are in line with me wanting to organize things, also step into that leadership role, because it also make me a more desirable candidate if I want to pursue a job or if I want to set forth, somebody will say, right, that know, love, and trust, that know, like, and trust, and looking
Yes.
to me. So this is validating. You've also now helped me clear my calendar because I know exactly what's going on. And it lightened my load. Like it lightened my load. I
You
know that
feel good?
yeah, I
Yeah.
feel great. I
Yeah.
feel great.
Oh, now that's all opinion. I love it. It's a great opinion. What does great feel like? Tap into that. What is the sensation that you're feeling right now?
Oh,
That's
exactly
the
kind of
secret.
what I went earlier too, like the lightness of things and also the stagnancy is lifting. Like I feel like somebody just went in and scrubbed my body with a Brillo brush, like internal. Right. So there's,
Oh my
I'm getting
goodness.
rid of all the dust and the stuff that's been accumulating and I'm again decluttering, right? It's decluttering the insides as well. So that is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling much lighter, a little clearer on things and a little bit more jazzed because I was
Okay.
definitely feeling a little bit stagnant.
Oh, I got it. I
Yes.
totally changed energy. Like I know we're screens and all in the music industry. Anytime that comes up, it's usually like this. Big horn, big horns, air horns all day, right? I really hope that came through. Otherwise, it's just Mike doing pump fists.
Mike, I wanted to ask you a couple of things before we officially wrap up. The first one is, like I was saying before, we need our own sources of support and care. What are
Mhm.
some of your non-negotiables? If all else goes a little wonky in the week or the day, what are some things that you absolutely have to make sure that you have in order to stay as focused and as supported in your own life?
Oh, I love this question. Great question and so valuable. I break it down. I'm a frameworks guy. I love complex issues and then simplifying and gamifying. I call it the ABCs, non-negotiables. Write them down, kids. A, air. I know. Without it, death or death-like symptoms. I breathe every day. Breath work, intentional breath work, because that increases the amount of dopamine that I get up to my brain. They say after about 90 seconds, I'm a Wim Hof instructor too. So if you can last that 90-second hold, that's a real sweet spot. And the amount of oxygen and the amount of dopamine that gets flooded to your brain at that point is astonishing. So A, air, non-negotiable. B, bedtime. I learned very early in my career with being a musician that waking up at 6 a.m. to go train clients after a 2 a.m. loadout sucked. Sleep is so important to growth hormone, so important to stress cycles, cortisols. It's if you are lacking your sleep, you're not getting sleep quality. Holy guacamole, you're out of tune. That is really important for your circadian cycle. You want to thrive, sleep. Okay. Third, cold. I'm Canadian. Also, substitute cold for challenge. I cold exposure every single day, at least in the cold shower if I don't get to the ice bath. And more so, being cold as shit in Canada here, we jump in the river. It's that the moving water, getting into nature. If you can get a trifecta of nature, breath, and cold, oh my goodness, you are a totally different human being. You can change your energy. So if you're not grounding every day, cold water, cold shower can help you get to grounding. So if you're feeling like a loose, like heads up in the clouds all day, hit the cold. It'll also build your resiliency. Remember when we were talking about that safety? that warrior safety, that rebel safety, that's one of the fastest ways to build your resiliency up. So A, B, C, air, bedtime, cold exposure. Boom, non-negotiable.
This is so fascinating. I will definitely support the discussion around sleep. This comes up a lot also in food and nutrition. A lot of times, sleep dysregulations will not only cause people to have issues with metabolism or digestion or whatever, but also puts us at risk for things like neurodegenerative diseases down the line.
Huge.
So people will often say, like, I want to eat better, I want to work out. I'm like, but first, let's talk about your sleep. Just let me
Let's
get an
sleep.
idea. Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
So I
sleep.
very, very much encourage people to prioritize that. This has been fascinating, Mike. Is there anything else that we
Done.
didn't touch upon that you would like to share? And I know we could have a whole like 7 hour session discussion
For
and
sure.
part twos through nine.
I'm just so happy I made a new friend here today,
Ah,
and I'm really excited to hear how the listeners, how the viewers, how all your fans respond, because something that is my real important, especially with the times right now, guys. Like, it's really important to be kind. I think that that's a really powerful piece that we can all do better with, because oftentimes people are running around totally unaware about the wars that they're waging inside. And when we stop and we breathe, like, those pattern disruptions are more for me than you, right? Like, and now we can respond instead of react. If you look at the word responsibility, it's respondability. Are you able to respond, or are you reacting? Because when somebody does something that you get pissed off about, you can think of it this way. My Omi used to say this. Go, every time you got your finger out, you got 3 pointing back at you. Okay. And furthermore, when we project on others, that's a thing that we haven't solved. So that's worth noting. If you feel an emotional charge, and if you see somebody doing something, it's important to be kind, because they're doing the same thing. They're getting that emotional charge because they haven't got that resolve inside. And when we give them space and patience, and we ask questions rather than tell, when we ask out of curiosity. You also said that well, would it be crazy? You hear how my inflection goes. That's very intentional. If I said, would it be crazy? No, it's very different. It's how you communicate, right? So think about that. And then the last thing I want to leave is more of my indigenous background, is that there's a buffalo, and there's a cattle, and then there's horses out on the plains. And when a storm comes in, the horses run, right? The horses run. And what happens when horses run? Well, guess what? The storm catches them, and they stay in the storm longer. Okay. The cattle, they're different. They're a different breed. They're dumb. They just lay down. They're just like, okay. And the storm stays. And then oftentimes that storm just hovers over the cattle, because they're like, you're dumb. And they'll just pelt them for hours, and they'll just sit there taking it. The buffalo is very interesting, though. The buffalo is the only animal in the plains that will actually run towards a storm. So if you can be more buffalo, you're going to get through the darkness. And the darkness, to quote one of my favorite artists, K-Flay, the darkest nights mean that we can see the stars the most. So think about that. Get into the darkness, get inside. It's an inside job. Whatever you are coming up against, it could be an obstacle or it could be an opportunity. Choice is yours.
this has been such an emotional whirlwind for me for many reasons. This week has been topsy-turvy just because of where we are right now in the state of the world, but what week isn't? And
Yeah,
just like you
right.
said, opportunities and obstacles. I am so grateful for our conversation. I am going to ask you my final two-part question, which is my figurative and literal question. What is on your plate today, Mike? Both what is the next thing that you're doing once we detach from each other, and what is the next thing that you are planning on eating?
Next thing I'm doing literally is going to walk my pooch. His name is Darwin, which explains I should have just started that. My dog's name is Darwin. You would have gotten everything out of me, and our interview would have been done. He's the coolest dog in the whole wide world. Everybody loves him. He is my official assistant coach. He gets a nice little walk after this. We love doing our little Darwin Mike walks. He looks at me. I always wonder what he named me. That's a question that maybe the audience can like put that in the show notes. What would Darwin name Mike? I don't know. I'm interested. And we're going to do that immediately on the books. Really, what I'm very excited about is really kicking into overdrive. We've got tours planned to Australia where we take MusicFit Records, my artist label, all down. We've got a closed circuit through a bunch of spots throughout the years that I've made really great high profile contacts. So we are literally the only music industry label that really emphasizes artist wellness. There's a lot of people that talk about, oh, artist development, but they're talking about like social exposure and like TikTok. Here's how to win with AI. No, we talk about the artists first. So we're really excited. We're finishing up our plans. We've got that spring tour. Apparently Australia doesn't even know, they don't believe in spring or fall. So when I say it to them, they're like, oh, May? Yeah, okay, May. Yeah, it's like it's hot or it's hotter. That's what they get. It's like, okay, they don't really do the season. So we're very excited about that, launching MusicFit Records. So if anybody's interested, you can head out to musicfitrecords.com. We're also the only record label with a university attached. Education, we empower. And I'd love to have you, Dina, in there doing your thing. I would love for you to be faculty, even just guesting in there. You know, you were just talking about how you want to do some more things. I think that would be a really, really, because nutrition on the road is it's a third of my book, right? And I know that you spend a lot of time with that and you can help so much. Like, oh, that would be really fantastic. So we should definitely talk offline on that. And I'd love to come and do a workshop with you guys. The next meal, I'm thawing chicken. I have a bit of a practice though. On Fridays, because I used to live in scarcity. So on Fridays, I take myself out. So I'm thawing chicken, but today's Friday. And I want to take myself out, get a nice healthy meal. We got one just down the block. We got a place called Seed and Salt, all organic, like nice bowls, real good. And I do that as a reminder that money is an exchange. So when I put it out, it comes back 3 times. So I like to do my budget and like review the week and just set myself up and just like recap. And I like to do that. So I'll probably grab a Thai bowl down at Seed and Salt. If
Oh,
not,
that
I got
sounds so
chicken.
yummy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I
So
thought I got chicken. Again, I cannot thank you enough for A, crossing paths with me, B, providing our listeners and myself as well with so many wonderful takeaways, and C, I did the ABC thing just like you did. And C, sharing so much of your own personal story. I mean, I think it's so wonderful that we get to interview and kind of have this like breadth and depth of conversations with people from all different walks of life, but we do share the commonality of being human and
yeah.
having to hopefully live and lead with kindness and compassion and take care of ourselves and each other. So thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dina. It's been wonderful.